Hello and welcome everyone. Today we bring you the latest update on centuries by all batsmen across formats. Number 1, Chris Gayle, 1999 to 2021. First Test 100, 175 versus Zimbabwe. First ODI 100, 152 versus Kenya. First T20 International 100, 117 versus South Africa. Number 2, Brandon McCullum, 2002 to 2016. First Test 100, 143 versus Bangladesh. First ODI 100, 166 versus Ireland. First T20 International 100, 116 versus Australia. Mahela Jayawardene, 1997 to 2015. First Test 100, 167 versus New Zealand. First ODI 100, 120 versus England. First T20 International 100 versus Zimbabwe. Number 4, Suresh Raina, India, 2005 to 2018. First Test 100, 120 versus Sri Lanka. First ODI 100, 101 against Hong Kong. First T20 International 100, 101 versus South Africa. Number 5, Tilkaratne Dilshan, Sri Lanka, 1999 to 2016. First Test 100, 163 versus Zimbabwe. First ODI 100, 117 versus Netherlands. First T20 International 100, 104 versus Australia. Number 6, Martin Guptill, New Zealand, 2009 to 2022. First Test 100, 189 versus Bangladesh. First ODI 100, 122 versus West Indies. First T20 International 100, 101 versus South Africa. Number 7, Ahmed Shahzad, Pakistan, 2009 to 2019. First Test 100, 147 versus Sri Lanka. First ODI 100, 115 versus New Zealand. First T20 International 100, 111 versus Bangladesh. Number 8, Faf du Plessis, South Africa, 2011 to 2021. First Test 100, 110 versus Australia. First ODI 100, 106 versus Australia. First T20 International 100, 119 versus West Indies. Rohit Sharma, India, 2007 to 2022. First Test 100, 177 versus West Indies. First ODI 100, 114 versus Zimbabwe. First T20 International 100, 106 versus South Africa. Number 10, Shane Watson, Australia, 2002 to 2016. First Test 100, 120 versus Pakistan. First ODI 100, 126 versus West Indies. First T20 International 100, 124 versus India. Number 11, Tamim Iqbal, Bangladesh, 2007-2022. First Test 100, 128 versus West Indies. First ODI 100, 129 versus Ireland. First T20 International 100, 103 versus Oman.
Number 12, we have KL Rahul from India, 2014 to 2022. First Test 100, 110 versus Australia. First ODI 100, 100 versus Zimbabwe. First T20 International 100, 110 versus West Indies.
And Maxwell, Australia, 2012 to 2022. First Test 100, 104 versus India. First ODI 100, 102 versus Sri Lanka. First T20 International 100, 145 versus Sri Lanka. Kevin O'Brien, 2006 to 2021. First Test 100, 118 versus Pakistan. First ODI 100, 142 versus Kenya. First T20 International 100, 124 versus Hong Kong. David Warner, 2009 to 2022. First Test 100, 123 versus New Zealand. First ODI 100, 163 versus Sri Lanka. First T20 International 100, 100 versus Sri Lanka. Muhammad Rizwan, Pakistan, 2015 to 2022. First Test 100, 115 versus South Africa. First ODI 100, 115 versus Australia. First T20 100, 104 versus South Africa. Babar Azam, Pakistan, 2015 to 2022. First Test 100, 127 versus New Zealand. First ODI 100, 120 versus West Indies. First T20 International 100, 122 versus South Africa. Jos Buttler, England, 2011 to 2022. First Test 100, 106 versus India. First ODI 100, 122 versus Sri Lanka. First T20 International 100, 101 versus Sri Lanka. David Malan, England, 2017 to 2022. First Test 100, 140 versus Australia. First ODI 100, 125 versus Netherlands. First T20 International 100, 103 versus New Zealand. Virat Kohli, India, 2008 to 2023. First Test 100, 116 versus Australia. First ODI 100, 107 versus Sri Lanka. First T20 International 100, 122 versus Afghanistan. Shubman Gill, India, 2022 to 2023. First Test 100, 110 versus Bangladesh. First ODI 100, 208 versus New Zealand. First T20 International 100, 126 versus New Zealand.